Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Joel, I was just realizing as the theme music was playing that we're up on an anniversary. I'm not sure what the exact day of the month it is, but it was 12 years ago this month that you and I met for the first time and did a show.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
How about that?
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't have guessed that long. That's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, 12 years ago. And wow, I was thinking about where my life was at that point, where your life was at that point, and we've walked quite a few miles since then.
What an incredible 12 years this has been. So I couldn't be happier on my end. I'm very pleased, just as your friend, to see your growth and what's happened in your life.
It's been quite the journey. We talked about that from the very beginning, how this is a journey that we're on, and wow.
Yeah.
I couldn't have predicted half of what happened. The other half I wouldn't have wanted to try to predict. It just would have been outside of my ability to even.
And I'll even go out on a limb and say we can't even predict what's going to happen next, which is really cool.
Well, there's an ironic piece to that. I do my other show on Monday as well. And during the earlier show, I interviewed a woman who's from Mallorca, really interesting woman. One of the things that I mentioned to her was how she made a wish about how 2025 would be a great year. And I said, well, my friend Joel points out that it doesn't matter who got elected president, it doesn't matter what the economy is. 2025 is always going to be a better year.
Yeah.
It's always going to be better next year. So actually, we can predict the future in that sense.
It will be better. There's no doubt about that. It's very consistent on that. Since we talked in 2012, there hasn't been a year that hasn't been better for me. And a lot of plot twist. My son passed away, during that time. I adopted Justin during that time. I started my own private practice, and just a lot's happened. So it's 12 years is a lifetime has happened in 12 years.
It is, yeah. And for me also, and as I look back, it has been 12 years of improvement all the time. It didn't always feel like it.
Right.
It doesn't feel like it necessarily day to day. But as I look back, it's just one continuous upward swing. How did I not feel that it wasn't that? I don't know. I don't understand.
That's sort of how it works. You don't necessarily realize it, until like things will happen, and that might be part of where we're heading with our topic today. Things happen to sort of push us in directions sometimes, and sometimes we need to push ourselves in directions. But life does have a way of just saying, okay, that's enough. Let's change course.
Yeah, that's enough. Yeah. That's the nice polite way of saying the GPS course correction of turn around, you're going the wrong direction.
Yeah, or get off your ass. One of the nice.
Or get off your ass, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever it is you're doing right now, don't go somewhere else.
Yeah. And that's sort of the point. You and I've talked a lot about the journey, as you mentioned, and life is solely about the journey. There isn't a destination, and at least in my work, from my perspective. So it's always about new experiences, new things, and when that battery starts to get to a point in your brain, it's like, wait a minute, this is I need new. I want new, but yet it's so much easier to stay put. And there's nothing wrong with staying put, but I've never been a person that really enjoyed staying put.
Well, like you were telling me before we got started, there's a homeostasis that goes on there.
Yes.
And we seek that as beings. That's where we feel safest. That's where we feel that life is going to be kindest to us, even if it's not true. That's the really interesting part about homeostasis, because homeostasis can actually be pretty messed up compared to, say, other people's homeostasis. Yeah. But if it's ours, we feel safer in it, which is an interesting thing.
We're safe in the known. If we're breathing, if we're eating, and we have shelter, that's always safer than the alternative. And as far as the sort of that historic mindset, the evolution of the brain says, look, we got this nice cave, we got access to food, we got water here. There's no need to leave. You stay there, and it's protective. But in modern times, it can be very I'm not critical of anyone thinks differently than I do, but I like that new, the flavor of new. I like to figure it out. I like to meet the new people. And I had a period of my life where I moved from Florida to South Carolina. I was there for about 5 years. As I mentioned before the show, I came to Richmond really with the expectation of being here for a year, and that was
Yeah.
2008.
Yeah, right.
And a lot happened in that, as we talked about since that time. But you wake up and you go, that's a long time. That's much longer than I thought I should be.
I understand completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how these things work out, because at the time that we think that something is supposed to happen or is going to happen or will play out a certain way, we think that. And then it proves to be different, and we're kind of in shock about it. I think that's one of the reasons we like that homeostasis. Homeostasis has predictability to it.
Yes.
It's very reliable in that sense.
Yes.
And so it makes us feel a level of comfort and a level of, it's like the world is stable. Like
yes.
the world isn't rocking all over the place.
And by definition, everything that takes place in our lives, that one of the truest statement made is change is inevitable. And I work with this client, and he's a really fun guy to talk to, but he's 30. He has Asperger's. He's brilliant, but he lives at home with his parents, and he has a hard time maintaining a job, mainly for social issues and stuff like that. And his parents are really saying, you need to start, we're getting older. And he's having a really hard time accepting. He said they are getting older. And he said, I realize logically they're not. He said, I wish things would just stay the same forever.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, yeah, I understand, but they're not going to.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that we have to learn to accept. I mean, a lot of what goes on in life is learning how to accept.
Yes.
That's one of the first things to accept, that it's not going to stay the same.
And once you sort of embrace that concept, and where we end, I have no idea when this ends. I physically understand my body will come to an end at some point. As far as life goes, my energy, I believe, will go on, but that could happen after we get off the show tonight. That
Sure.
could happen in a car wreck tomorrow, or it might be 25, 30 years from now. I have no idea.
Right.
It's just I want to live with that premise of, like, every day I want to go out there and new stuff, get new stuff in my orbit, in my face, meet new people, come up with it. Those are things that I've always thrived in. Some of my greatest growth times were during times of moving and a new environment. When I moved to Richmond, I didn't know a single human in Richmond. I didn't know anybody. And there's people that believe I've lived here my entire life. It's just you get so enmeshed into a community, and I've had my practice is very successful here. So I'm just sort of one of the Richmond people now, and it's it's funny that it's like I never wanted to be a Richmond person, so to speak, but here we are.
Yeah. But this homeostasis concept has a number of different angles to it. One of them ties into what the impetus was behind the show, because Jen came up with the title for the show today. And the impetus behind it is the concept of dealing with rejection in life.
Yes.
And, you have a certain expectation, it doesn't play out the way you wanted it to, and having to deal with that. Rejection can be a pretty tough pill to swallow. It can even be debilitating to the point where you just kind of freeze in space. I mean, that is another form of homeostasis. Is like, I don't know what to do. I'm scared of what's going on, so I'm just going to freeze right here. That's a homeostasis. It's not a healthy one, but it's a form of homeostasis, trying to find that stability. Correct. So I think we've identified one of the pieces of why we have trouble dealing with rejection. Rejection is a challenge to our homeostasis.
It's also a challenge to our ego. Being rejected, that could be in a relationship, that could be in a job, it could be just a friend group, a perception. For me, we have talked about a book called Rejection Proof a few times over the years. And it's about this. I won't get into the book too much, but it's about this guy that used desensitization to rejection as a way to become very successful. And when you really realize, I've heard rejection is just simply redirection. If you allow it to be rejection, especially like in relationships, there is that emotional component. You feel abandoned, you feel hurt, you feel, all the betrayed, all the emotions that go along with rejection. But usually on the other side of rejection is opportunity. There's other things that are available. There's other energies. There's other just not just opportunities in career wise, but relationships and friendships. And there's excitement in rejection sometimes when you look at it from a different perspective. But most people won't use the word excitement when they're describing it.
Well, it depends what kind of excitement you're talking about. I mean, fear is a form of excitement, and that's one that people often associate with rejection.
Sure.
So in that sense,
Yeah.
But
So
just because there's an excitement associated with it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good thing. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a bad thing. It just means that there is going to be an excitement. I think the excitement part is actually where a lot of the fear comes in, because excitement is basically moving away from that homeostatic situation that you're in.
Well, if I were to hook you up to EEG and monitor all your vital signs, excitement and anxiety register the exact same way.
Okay.
They really do. They read it. The doctor couldn't tell if you're super excited or in a panic attack. Your perception of that feeling is, and this is the other thing about how the mindset works. Excitement is, really good for the body. It releases the good chemicals. Anxiety is negative for the body. It releases the bad chemicals, but yet it's registering the same way. It's your interpretation of that determines how you feel about it.
Which means that the skill to be learned, or to already have, if you've got it, is to learn how to decide how we're going to respond to the excitement.
Yes. Or in a bigger scale, that's the answer to life. How are we going to respond to life?
Right.
Yeah.
But especially when something gets exciting, when the energy level increases and the sense of I don't know what's going to happen increases, how are we going to respond to that? How are we going to feel?
Yes.
And knowing that we can choose that, for me, it's a relatively new concept. It's within the last 12 years that I've learned that concept. I've learned that since I started doing the show with you. Before that seemed impossible. But now I understand that not only is it possible, it's actually the way it works. We get to choose.
Well, and again, life has these ways, and rejection is a tool of life. The journey of life has a way. There's detours, there's losing jobs, there's getting new jobs, there's relationships breaking up, there's unexpected deaths. Life has a way of forcing the journey, and you don't want to go sometimes. I was sharing with you before the show. I'm in a different place now in life, but how I'm in Richmond, Virginia, the crazy story behind all that, I didn't have any choices along the way. I was just these situations were forced on me. And now they worked out perfectly. I didn't think they were. I didn't want to move to South Carolina from Florida when I moved there. I moved from South Carolina to Virginia to take a job with a company that I thought was going to be, and that didn't work out at all. I mean, after I was there 5 years, but it didn't work out. And what the result of that is how I got my private practice, which is something I never would have gotten into if I'd stayed in Florida.
That probably is, for people like me who are planner types, that's probably the hardest part.
Yes.
Because you want so much to anticipate and know where it's going. That's why you plan.
Yes.
And when you find out that the plan almost never works, and that all of that is a lot of wasted energy, that's very upsetting. Seriously, that talk about throwing you off your homeostasis, that'll do it. That'll make you feel very unsettled.
It does. And then, but when you can adjust your perspective of the excitement, when I left Florida for South Carolina, and I did not want to go, as I said earlier, but everything I owned, I mean, literally everything I owned was in the trunk in the back seat of an old Pontiac Bonneville. Mm-hmm. And I drove from Florida to Rock Hill, South Carolina. There was a moment on the trip. At first, I was pissed I was going. And then I've thought I've never been more free than I am in my entire life. I have these handful of possessions. I'm starting a brand new life. And that was the perspective that I tried to maintain. And I did. Mm-hmm. But it was however bad I was perceiving Rock Hill, South Carolina to be, it was, I'm leaving the beaches of Florida. Nobody goes from the beaches of Florida to Rock Hill, South Carolina.
It's not the normal choice. No.
Not the normal choice. Now, I have lifetime friends I met in Rock Hill. We're still friends. I thrived in Rock Hill, South Carolina. I was there for probably 8-9 years there, and
Wow.
so it was fantastic for me. But I just sort of came up to Virginia, had a different perspective. I was coming to a new job. I was starting a new program at that job, and it was fantastic for the first 5 years. But everything that happened after that, led me to my private practice. And I was having a conversation with a client earlier today, and he has basically been dating this woman. She has 2 kids, and they've been dating for a while. And he's really into the process. They've lightly talked about marriage, and all these things. And so he about a month ago, she told him, she said, "Look, me and my ex are getting back together."
Ooh.
And he was just devastated. She said, "Look, you've been great." And he got very close to the kids. "You've been great, but we sort of figured out we need to be together for the sake of the kids, and we're going to have to move on." And that means, she didn't need to say this, but not only was the relationship over, but his connection with the kids is over, since
right.
Dad's coming back. And one of the kids even texted him a few times, like, "Why aren't you coming by?" And it's really heartbreaking. So what, he's been heartbroken for a while. But one of the things that helped him, he said, "I don't know what I was doing wrong with the law of attraction." He was using that. I said, "Well, you weren't doing anything wrong, but what the law of attraction was showing you, what you thought, that's what you wanted. But what you're missing is you discover the essence of what you want, the essence of a relationship, how that feels, and being able, maybe even have dating." He never considered dating a woman with kids before, so it demonstrated something that was the essence of what you're after. That specific thing didn't work, but now you can adjust your sails, knowing what you do want. So it isn't, the rejection he received could be part of that next leg of a journey, and him seeing things differently. So the law of attraction often will just give you situations that you may like you see a beautiful home that somebody lives in. And Mike Dooley, when he was not crazy, he used to talk about he gave an example, like you can attract anything with the law of attraction. However, if you see a bike that somebody else has, like talking about a kid, sees a bike he wants, it belongs to somebody else. Now, you can get a bike similar to that, but you can't have that bike. So the law of attraction, a lot of people say, "Well, I want this specific house." I'm not saying it's impossible, but what you're really looking at, the essence of that house, where it's located, what it represents. Same thing in relationships. So rejection, used properly, can just be part of a guidance system for you.
And 9 times out of 10, maybe even 99 times out of 100, if you're focused on one particular example, it has to be that one. What you're really doing is attaching negatively to it, which means you're going to get an outcome you don't like at all.
Well, yeah, when you get stuck on one outcome, I worked with this lady a few years ago, and she was my first client that ever came to me just for the law of attraction. It was,
okay.
Cool. I was really excited. She called and she said, "I've read your book, or somebody told me about you, and you're working the law of attraction." And so I was excited about what we're going to do with that. Well, it turns out I ended up not being excited, because she said, "I've been dating this guy. I've been dating this guy at work. He's married and he's got a few kids. And I want him to divorce his wife and us be together."
Oh, good luck. Yeah.
And I said, "Okay." And I said, "What does he think?" And he goes, "Well, he's not going to do that. But how do I make him do that?" I said, You don't. But I thought the law of attraction says I can have anything I want. You can have anything you want. You can have the essence of what you want. But if somebody else is married with kids, they're not going to, you can't make that happen. You can simply say, "Oh, what do you like about this guy?" And we only had one session when I told her it wasn't going to work the way she wanted it.
Yeah.
She said, "Oh, I thought I could come here and you give me a secret to make him leave her." I go, "No, not going to work." But yet that was her belief, that she was stuck. And I said, as long as you're stuck on one outcome with this guy, you're going to be miserable. And at some point, the wife's going to find out, and she's like, and I don't know the outcome with that, but you're setting yourself up for a lot of problems, when in reality, just if you took the essence of the relationship with him, what he believes in, there's other men out there that have very similar qualities. Put your law of attraction radar on that, so to speak, and attract that.
Yes.
Yeah, she wasn't having any of it, but that was the point. Yeah.
Sadly, there are a lot of people who they hear about law of attraction and they latch onto it as a way to get that one particular person. That's the most often the common one, right? One particular, it has to be that person.
Yes.
And I always find it to be kind of ironic, because they seem to be blind to the fact that they are negatively attached to that person. They really don't see it as a negative attachment. It's truly a negative attachment.
Are you familiar?
But see it that way.
Have we discussed the term limerence?
We've mentioned it. We haven't really gone into detail. Okay.
Limerence is a lot of people in her situation. They're not in love. They're in limerence. They are obsessed. They believe that's the only person for them. They believe that whatever it takes to get that person, it's an obsession. It's all they think about. And it looks very similar to being wildly in love, but it's an unhealthy attachment. It's an unhealthy attachment. So limerence, if you ever have a chance to look that up, so many people I know fall in limerence and not in love, but they believe it's love, and it can ruin your life. It's almost like an addiction or codependency. It's every waking moment is spent on something you can't have.
Yeah, that's miserable.
Yeah, that is a miserable existence to live in.
Yeah, it is. But that's why it's so interesting to me, because people they hear about law of attraction, they have this kind of an obsession. They understand on some level that the law of attraction depends on what you're giving your attention to, what you're giving your vibrational attention to. Now, I would say probably most of them think that it's just some magic words that you utter, and the magic words make the thing happen. I want a new boat, so a new boat shows up. But they don't really grasp how the whole process works, because that it isn't just that.
It's not that at all, actually. Yeah.
And so if they really understood how the process works, like they think they do, that's where I get a little bit confused, because if they really understood it, then they would know, looking at their own situation, that the thing that they want, they don't feel good about it because they don't have it.
Right.
And that alone is the reason why they're never going to get not only that, but anything similar to it, because they're attracting not having the thing that they want.
The lack. They're focused on the lack of it. The lack attracts lack, and that's instead of looking at, that's the concept that I want. When you see somebody, or you meet somebody, or in relationships, you if it doesn't work out, but the pieces of the relationship that were fantastic, that's where you can use the law of attraction to attract. Like, I'm trying to attract this. Sometimes somebody being, to me, a relationship, sense of humor is number one. That I have to have sense of humor. Somebody that's willing to put up with this craziness up in this brain of mine, somebody that laughs at it with me. There's some things that really matter. There's some things that don't, but I make sure that if I'm looking for a relationship, I'm going to be tuned into the things that I'm looking for. And when I find that, then if it doesn't work out, I'm still not upset, because I still found pieces of it. It's all part of this journey we're talking about. And we're going to have multiple people show up in our lives. There's all kind of things that are going to be happening. And that's the excitement that I love about it. You never know what's going to happen. Nothing's guaranteed. Nothing. That's why life is like this gigantic, carnival. It's just, I don't know. I have no clue what's coming next.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. It is a carnival.
Yes.
And it has everything. It has the sideshow. It has the midway. It has all of it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where this goes, but I just love the fact that it's going. if that makes any
Mhm.
sense. I don't know where we're going. Just the fact we're going is all we need to do. One of my neighbors, the one I'm so close to, he's 12 now, and if I called and said, "Hey, do you want to go?" Before I could say, "Do you want to?" Yes. He didn't even hear where we're going. He's like, "Yeah, let's go, let's go." It's just wherever you want to go, let's go. As long as I can go, let's go. And he loves that. So having that 12-year-old enthusiasm, whatever that
Mhm.
next, and we always do cool stuff, so he loves that. But the ideas behind all we're practicing with the law of attraction is we get it wrong. Early in the law of attraction, when you and I start working together, my big, you know, I was money was my thing. It was I
Mhm.
needed, I was making good money, but it just didn't. I didn't. I always had enough and had a little bit to put back, but I never had. Why am I not more successful? And I lacked. My perception was I lacked money, and I
Mhm.
kept lacking. I always had enough, but it
Mhm.
was not enough to just be able to coast for a while.
Yeah.
And the ability to, not that I wanted to quit work. I don't have to work anymore now, but I still work. I'm never going
Mhm.
to stop working because I love what it does. So it is just the security of that. Now, as I said before, you and I were talking for the show, money's not a thing anymore. It's not a. It's,
Mm.
I don't, I'm not attracting. I mean, it's on cruise control, but I'm not intentionally worried about money anymore. So it just comes easily.
Yeah. Well, the momentum's
So
already built up, so you just let the momentum go.
yeah. Just I don't know if you watched Bitcoin recently, but wow, I'm loving
Yeah, what,
that.
100,000 or something like that? Yeah.
105,000 is yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
It is. It
Yeah,
is.
I was in at 20,000, so we're good.
Not bad.
Yeah,
Not bad at
yeah,
all.
not bad. So, but again, that's just where the side shows. I don't even. I mean, if it's $1 million or zero, it doesn't affect me. It's cool either way. But just that attitude toward it, and so what am I? What am I looking for? What is all involved with all this? So, it's the journey, the excitement of it all versus the redirection of rejection is almost always missed. I've been rejected. It doesn't ever feel good. I'm not trying to play off, but once you can adjust, what is the rejection doing? What's it? This, like being rejected in a relationship. This isn't the only woman in the world. There's other women. There's situations out there. There's all types of things. Just being open to stuff, but the rejection makes it feel like I lost my only opportunity to be happy, and
Yeah,
that's
that
not true.
ties in. Where, especially where a primary relationship is concerned, I think that's probably the driving force behind the anxiety
Sure.
regarding rejection. Because what's really at the root of it is I have a certain feeling with this person, and I'm
Right.
afraid I will never have that feeling with anybody else. And that's the root. That's why the rejection feels so bad. Because if I can't have it with this person, I'll never have it. Oh my God, this
Yes.
is a catastrophe.
Yes.
Now it's not
And
true,
it's
but
not true.
it's the belief that we're experiencing in those moments.
And that's why people get so they stay in relationships that are unhealthy because it's like
Mhm.
I don't know what else is out there.
Right.
I know people that won't leave relationships, and both of them are miserable, and I'm always wondered why would you stay in something that's so miserable, but
Mm.
yet that they're comfortable because, well, I mean, it's the known. I know it's the known. I'm like, I'm not going to have yelling and screaming and throwing fights.
Ugh.
Yeah, that just isn't that's not that may happen once. I don't think I would attract somebody who would do that, but if it
Yeah.
did happen once, there would never be a second one.
I hear you. Yes. Yeah, that wouldn't fly with me either. And yeah, I think if you're healthy, no, it doesn't fly with anybody really.
No,
But
but you
apparently there are some people it does, because like you say,
oh,
there's some people
but
they'll stay through all kinds of stuff.
but I love them. But I love them. Is how one of the saddest things I've over the years have worked with some battered women and
Mm.
was always fascinated by they always go back. They always go back.
Yeah. Yeah. The
And then
moth
and
returns kind of thing.
likely when they finally move on from that, they have an amazing ability to attract the next abusive relationship.
Mm. That's why one of the best things we can learn is that we actually have choice,
Yes.
because that's the opposite of the mindset we're describing right now. The mindset we're describing right now is where there's really no choice.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
And
Because otherwise, if you had choice, that would be easy. You just leave, or you just move on to something else. But the belief is there's no choice.
Right. And then since your belief is there's no choice, then you get situations that reinforce there's no choice.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a very, and I'm not being critical of anyone. I understand how you could fall into that.
Oh, yeah.
It's a horrible place to be. But the rejection, the redirection, and all of this is part of there's a bigger term, and it really pisses people off. So I love to say it frequently. Is trust the process. Trust the process. The process. The process of the journey always works, and having the ability to allow it to happen. That's something that, and I get it, because as we were talking before the show, I just get, at being here in this house for like 12 years now, going on 13, it's like, I never intended to be, I've never been anywhere other than my childhood. I've never been anywhere this long. And, it's like, and I love the area. I love all the people here, but it's like, there's like, wow, this is, everybody that knows me knows that 8:15 tomorrow, I'm going to be at the gym.
Yeah.
I want to do that. I want to eat lunch. I want to go to work. I mean, it's all great, but it's also like, this is this is a lot of routine, and routine is a great thing sometimes, but also mixing it up sometimes is as well.
Which we may be hearing more about in the near future. So
yeah, let's hope so.
You keep tuned in on that one.
Yeah, I'm going to the bench this week, so you never know what happens at the bench.
Well, yeah, that bench is dangerous. That bench can do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I might. Yeah, every time I'm there, it decided me. When Justin was younger, and we were down visiting, and he goes, "Why aren't we living here full time?" I go, "I don't have a good explanation. I don't know. I don't know why."
That's great. What a great response. I love it.
Yeah.
On Mondays I do 2 shows, as you know, and the earlier show I had a guest named Chloe Jimenez Peters, who lives in Mallorca, and we had a really great conversation. She had one of those rejection moments about I guess it would be 7 years ago, something like that, when she had a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a third one in the oven, and her mate left her for a 23-year-old woman. And that was it. That was the end of their relationship. So she was left stranded with 3 kids, one on the way, and just trying to deal with all that. And she ended up reading, or actually audiobook listening to some Bob Proctor material. And while she was doing that, she saw an ad for something called transformational healing, and ended up paying money, taking a course, becoming certified in it. And now she does that professionally and turned her life around, the whole 9 yards. So it's a great story. One of the things that we talked about a lot during that episode today was how, with the transformational healing approach that as she was taught and as she uses it with her clients, she's trying to go after both the conscious and the subconscious mind at the same time. Recognizing that you do have a conscious component, you have to work on that one. You have to, smooth your thinking out, understand that you have choices, empower yourself, all that kind of thing, while also going after the subconscious content, dealing with childhood issues and all that kind of thing. You have to do both of them, which I found to be refreshing. I mean, you and I have talked about stuff like that. I've had a few other guests who talked about that, but I love that I talked about that with her, because one of the key ideas that she shared was what enabled her to get out of that bad situation she was in. She could easily have been one of those women like you were describing, who ends up in another relationship of the same kind, or who goes back to the partner, or, some kind of really bad result. She could have easily have done that. She was certainly, vulnerable enough that she could have done something like that. But because of the chain of events I just mentioned, she found herself in a place where she understood she had choice. And she used that choice to decide to go after both the conscious and subconscious components, learn this new method, and it turned her life around. Because
that's impressive.
So she was to go back to what we're talking about, homeostasis, she was in a very unstable situation. Her homeostasis was gone. It had been wiped out. She took advantage of that situation where she'd been completely rejected. Talk about the rejection. She'd been completely rejected by her partner. She took advantage of that situation to say, I choose a different way of living. And my point there is that the lack of homeostasis enabled her to decide she had a choice.
What that is so profound. I'm really excited to hear that for her, because I discussed that with you several times. We, even before the show, we were talking. I didn't have homeostasis, didn't exist for me. I had nothing. I had nowhere to go. So whatever was available is where I went. And so that was taken away from me. So I had to embrace wherever I was at, and that turns out to be the greatest thing that ever happened. And it made me, like, I'm sure she realized, wait a minute, I am my own solution now. I don't need it. It really is empowering. There's no fear anymore. The idea of change, there's no fear. In fact, there's nothing but exciting when I think about any type of change, because there were nights I had no clue where I was going to sleep at all. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know place to live. So I had to it all worked out perfectly. But man, there was talk about a lack of homeostasis. I just, and a lot of, actually had this therapist one time ask me, she had read my book. She said, so somehow most people she said, my assumption with people that have been homeless and really unstable situations, I assume you would be someone who would want to plant and never move again. And I go, I have the opposite response. I felt that was the most exciting time of my life. It was terrible, but at the same time, it was like, wow, and when you get to it, when you realize, man, I came through this and I'm stronger, I have a better life than I ever would have had. My life today is far better than the life I would have had if none of this stuff happened. Now, I don't want to go do it again, but I am so excited that I was given this opportunity to go through all this. And, there's no, and I'm not being too off base when I say, I don't think anybody has a better life than me. I really don't.
I would tend to agree, actually. I mean, every time that you ever tell a story, first of all, there's always a smile on your face. Second of all, the enthusiasm is infectious. So it becomes difficult to even conceive of the idea that your life could be better, because it's pretty damn good right now. It is every single time.
There's nothing to worry about, and you realize it's all there. And so all of that uncertainty and the rejection and the unstable part, I don't view that right now as anything but thank goodness it happened, because the other option, I'm sure there's multiple options, but the idea that I would be still sitting behind a desk for 40 years selling insurance in the small town I grew up in is absolutely horrifying to me.
True or false? Do you believe that if you had taken that path, you'd still be alive?
No. Yeah. My addiction.
I mean, seriously, that thought has occurred to me too with my own stuff. If I was still in that space that I was in previously, if I didn't move out of that, I don't think I'd be here.
No, I would have. I developed a gambling addiction while I was working for my dad in the insurance agency, and that was cruel. I would have continued addictive behavior out of and then addiction would have killed me. Somebody would have killed me. I could not have lived in that. And plus, I'm incredibly healthy because of my mindset and what I do. I don't know if I'd maintained all that. I probably would have been depressed and just weigh 300 pounds and, just have a heart attack and die by the time I was 50.
Yeah. And I don't know exactly what my demise would have been, but it would have been pretty. I know that.
Yeah.
It would have been pretty miserable.
Yeah. But
so this points to something really crucial, which is, as much as we seek homeostasis, and this is a theme that you and I talked about before we even started today's show, as much as we appreciate and like homeostasis, thank goodness for the non-homeostasis.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what makes life possible.
The being able to go, nobody, I work with fabulously wealthy people, billionaire families and professional athletes and people that I have. The most successful people I know have never, by the way, using money as a benchmark success.
Sure.
People that have $5 billion kind of people.
Right.
All of them have a rejection story. All of them have most of them worked for some company they got fired from that started them. There's a story like that behind them. It's and then the rejection made them fabulously wealthy because of what either sometimes it's just revenge, it's whatever, but they were driven to go do their own stuff. And it doesn't mean you can't be successful having a homeostasis basic life, but you can go put in 20 years at Dominion Power, retire with a nice, that's great. But that lifestyle compared to the what can happen when you just allow the journey to unfold, you get rejected, the lack of all the instability. I even talk about, I grew up in a crazy childhood with a lot of mental illness, addiction, a lot of chaos. And while certainly not optimal, I'm not claiming that anybody going through that is good for a kid. But I also I was forged in craziness. And so I was able to survive that. And one of the reasons I think that, and a lot of people are defeated by that. So I want to be really careful when I say that. That's not something that I'm suggesting is a good route. But my response to that was a growth mindset that I didn't even know existed at the time. And I survived it. And it is something that made me stronger. It gives me a lot more empathy for kids now. That's why I'm so protective of kids and helping kids in bad situations, because, I saw what could have happened to me.
Now, there is another piece to the homeostasis that I want to bring in. And I want to take your temperature on, see what you think of it. Because it kind of describes where my life is right now. And you know my history, particularly my financial history. You know what I've been through there. I'm now in a place where I'm kind of similar to where you were at a few years ago, where you were getting by and so forth. I'm a little bit more than getting by, but not a lot more.
Right.
I'm doing okay. And what it has done, it has given me a sense of stability that feels good. What I'm doing, though, is I'm using that stability to explore some stuff that I really have no way of justifying financially. I have no way of it'd be great if they turned into something, but I'm just not worried about it. I'm pursuing them because they feel good.
Yeah.
I'm pursuing them because I love them. So it's different from the idea of having your whole world turned upside down and then latching onto that as an opportunity to change our thought process, to choose something new and so forth. It's a completely different route from that. It's kind of playing the other side of the fence, so to speak, the stable side of the fence, and using that as a route to change. The reason I bring it up is, like right now, I spend a lot of my time doing something I thought I would never do. I have a tech background. When
Yes.
my business crashed, I was hosting and developing websites, and it was not something I enjoyed doing at all. I didn't like the programming. I didn't like all that kind of stuff. I still don't like programming. To me, programming is on par with going to the dentist. I really have no desire at all to program. So what am I doing? I'm programming.
Of course you are. Yeah.
But here's the wild part. I can't program the way you're supposed to program. I can't type out lines of stuff and create, the hand-coded components and all. I have no patience for that. But I found that I can get AI to do that part for me.
Yes.
So I'm doing the conceptual side, and I'm having AI do the technical side. And it's not, it's certainly a lot more palatable because I don't have to do the stuff that I really hate.
Yes.
And I'm actually enjoying the creative side of, well, let's see if we can get it to do this now. Let's see if we can get it to do that. And I don't have to think about it in terms of coding. I just think of it in terms of, well, here's a component. This is what I'd like the component to do. AI, can you make the component do that? It gives me some code, I plug it in, and it does it. Like, well, damn, that's pretty cool. Let's see if we can do it with the next component.
Yeah, I love that. Well, what you've done is you have found a way to you love the AI piece. The programming piece is sort of necessary for what you're trying to get done.
Yeah.
So you figured out how to do that together, and
Yeah.
that's where you came up with your own solution to get it done. That's great.
Now, here's the really odd thing. I have no idea how this turns into any kind of career. I can't. I have no conception of how this turns into money or anything like that. I'm just doing it for the fun of it.
Just
And
do it.
I'd be willing to bet you that there's a good chance this turns into something financial at some point. I have no idea what it is.
Yeah, but that's the stuff that does. You just I shared a long time ago about this kid that was upset. He was an Asperger's guy, great young man, but he was obsessed with vacuums.
Yes,
Remember? Did we talk about that? Remember
I do
that?
remember that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this poor kid, his thing was vacuums from the time he was 4 years old till he still, oh, his first date, his only date in high school, he tried really hard but couldn't help bringing out the pictures of vacuums and discussing vacuums. And his date asked him to take her home. So, you know, so, so he goes to college where he wasn't, he found other people with oddities too. So he's fitting a little better in college, finds a woman he falls madly in love with who could tell him, say, look, we're not allowed to discuss vacuums in the house. We vacuums are not, and he adheres to it. But he got on with a gigantic vacuum company, and he's having his time of his life. He literally designs vacuums and increases efficiency. There's industrial applications for vacuums that he coordinates with people in these gigantic vacuums rooms for NASA and stuff like that. So he's having the time of his life, but there's no way you could ever see that translating into anything. So I always believe if you find a passion, you do that, and then somehow, especially with all the stuff that's happening with AI and the quantum computers right now with Google, oh, that hurts your brain.
It does.
It really does. They're suggesting some stuff that is like, oh no, we're getting deep. Like another dimension. It's really odd what they're doing, but they're using entanglement in a weird way with computing, and it's like it solved a problem that in theory should have taken 27 billion years.
Wow.
It solved it in 1 second.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
The story of the guy who loved the vacuum brought a kind of ironic thought to my mind, and that is the old cliche that nature abhors a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum.
Yes.
But he loves a vacuum.
He loves a vacuum. He's anti-nature, I guess.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he and nature don't get along too good.
At all. I've never met a kid. When he was 13, and I was talking to, we had a rule he could talk about vacuums for 15 minutes. And then
he had to fill the vacuum. That was the thing.
He had to fill the void, the vacuum, exactly. So, but of course, we never stuck to 15 minutes because when I tried to talk about anything else, he just kept saying,
I had to go right back to the vacuum.
Yeah. So, but it was this, and he's very funny, but he knows how his brain's working. He goes, not many people want to spend time with me. And I'm like,
not really, no.
Yeah, because you talk about vacuums, but he's married, has a kid. Vacuums are not allowed to be discussed in the house. He's wildly successful, and it's like, wow, he ended up in a great place.
That's a great example of how things play out in ways you have no way of anticipating.
And that's where I mentioned earlier, the trust the process concept. One of the best things we could do, and this is me too, so I'm not judging others. If we just let things unfold, it's amazing. It's just let things unfold. I mean, take action, do the thing, but don't try to control the outcomes. Don't try to just understand whatever the outcome. There's a reason for the outcome, and just see where it goes.
I found for myself, I have to even take it to more of an extreme and say, I don't care if there's an outcome, because the moment I start caring about an outcome, I start trying to dream what it is, and then I screw myself up.
Yeah.
So I don't care if there's an outcome. I don't know if there may not even be an outcome. The whole thing may be pointless.
Yes.
The only thing I know is I like this. That's the only thing I know. The rest of it, I can't make any sense out of it. And if I try to, I will screw it up. So I just don't try.
One of the things that we talked about a long, long time ago, and I'm so glad you have that mindset, because most of us have a tendency to get stuck on one outcome or one thing only. Like, I must make a living in this field. I had one of my favorite stories. It applies to many topics, but is when I was living in South Carolina, during the financial crisis, right before I moved up to Virginia. There's a guy that worked for the Bank of America, and he was an accountant for them, making a couple $100,000 a year, steady job, but he was spending a couple $100,000. So he he's living nicely, but it wasn't like there's a lot of backup. He had a couple kids, so he got laid off. And during that time, for those that you remember, it just was not, accountants were not needed at that point. They were
There
cutting
weren't a lot of
everybody.
jobs, period, at that time. There
That was a really bad time. So one day, I came over to talk to him. He's more of a friend than a client at that point, and I just knew he was down. So I pulled up, and he said, "Well, you want to run I'm going to run up to the dump, take the garbage." And it's okay. So we're going down the road, and he stopped at like 5 people's house to pick up their garbage. I said, why are we picking up other people's garbage? He goes, out here, the big waste management company, they don't come out here. So I gather the garbage and take it in. The rural garbage collection didn't exist at the time. So I said, what if everybody paid you $35 a month to just take the garbage in the meantime? I said, right now you made $350, just on this road. I imagine there's other roads out there. And he goes, well, I don't want to be a garbage man. I go, okay, well, just keep doing nothing. And so he started doing it. And he ended up with like 900 clients really easy, because he's working every single day. So then he went to an auction and bought a used dump truck for like $1,800, a garbage truck.
God.
Yeah, but he had to spend $10,000 on the hydraulics to get them working.
Yeah, right.
And he eventually ended up having 30 trucks, employed over 100 people, and sold his company to either Waste Manager, one of their bigger ones, for like $4 million.
Wow.
So he I love that story because it applies to so many things we talk about, but just, he wasn't expecting that. It was just something he was going to do to get some extra money, but it led to it. And, he's got other business ventures now. He's never gone back to accounting. He doesn't need to. He's got other things going on. And, but he was stuck on that one course of action of only accounting. He wasn't open to other ideas. We tend to, as humans, get stuck on that one course of action. When you allow yourself to sort of trust the process that we're talking about, that I don't know how this is going to unfold, Walt, but you're doing something you love. It minimally, that's good. That's enough. If you're just doing something you love, that's good. But there's a really good chance, if you don't try to force it, somehow there'll be an aha moment going, oh my gosh, look what I got here.
I believe that's going to happen. I don't know when, I don't know how, and I refuse to speculate about it, because I'll just drive myself crazy. I know that from experience. That much I know really well. That road I am expert at.
yeah, I get that. But this is to me that's the flavor of life we're talking about. Just when things don't work out. Yes, I've lost people I've loved. In relationships, and they can be really difficult. But at the same time, I'm always amazed that there's always another chapter. There's always something better than I thought. And I have really embraced the idea. I have no idea what's going to happen, and I love it. Let's see what happens.
Something else comes out of that too, because most of what I'm doing here, what I'm talking about regarding what I'm doing, comes out of what you and I have talked about, what I've talked about with other people here on the show, all the different ways that I've learned about how energy works, how law of attraction works, how spirituality works, how all that kind of stuff works, how the entanglement works, how quantum theory works, how it all connects together. I realize that it's an emotional universe. It's about how we feel. If we feel good about something, then we're going to attract more of the stuff that we feel good about. If I feel bad about something, I'm going to attract more of the stuff that I feel bad about. So I have been very much with baby steps, but I've been taking steps to learn to trust doing that. And I'm to a point now where I'm trusting it pretty well. Had a very interesting thing happen I think it was yesterday, or it may have been this morning. I can't remember for sure. I think it was this morning. I woke up this morning, and most often when I wake up, I'm okay. There's no big deal going on. This morning I woke up, I said, I just feel good today.
Oh,
I have nothing I can point to about that. It's not like I've done anything different. I've been doing the same thing that I've been doing all along. I've been, trying to focus on what I like and not what I don't like. I've been directing my attention to the things that give me the most joy and so forth. Nothing really new going on, but all of a sudden I just feel better than I normally do.
That's awesome.
And that's after a long period of time of just kind of, just sort of, homeostasis. Well, the homeostasis has shifted
Yeah.
for the better.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that part. Homeostasis can actually shift for the better too.
Well, of course. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. And you, when you wake up feeling good like that, make that your goal every morning. Do whatever
Oh
it takes to
yeah,
feel good every morning. And when
yeah.
you, that's, to me, I adjust
First
my
thing I did was
mindset
celebrate it.
before.
The very first thing that happened when I felt that, like, damn, this is great.
Yeah.
Hooray for me. You know,
Yeah.
that was
You
the first
celebrate
thought.
it,
Like, I
mark
got to
it.
stay with this. This is a good
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah. That's fantastic. That's how you keep attracting more of that.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So you're right. That's going to be my intention going forward. Like every morning's going to be like that.
Yeah. And so looking forward to that next step, that next day, the next connection, that's really big. It's really big. So I love the process that, for me, the excitement of life is what I always enjoyed. And as you know, I've seen some crazy, I mean, when I
Oh,
say excitement, there's some stuff all over the place, but
oh yeah.
nonetheless, it's like, this has been, if the journey were to end right now, what an incredible journey this has been. It's been incredible. Now it's not going to end right now. I plan on many, many more chapters of it going, but no matter
I plan on
what,
talking to you about those chapters too. It's going to be fun.
it's going to be fun. So the idea of all this, it makes life worth living. I've said this before, and again, I don't know anybody that enjoys life more than I enjoy life, and that's because I've been through so much. I have a great contrast to how bad things can be, and I really, and people think I say that because I'm a life coach. That's what I'm selling, but I really do enjoy life.
Yeah, if anybody's actually coming to that conclusion that Joel is saying that because he's selling it, I promise you, he doesn't care whether you're buying it because he doesn't need it right now. It's
Yeah.
not a big deal.
Yeah, we're not in a place where that matters anymore. But
It's not important.
yeah, it's just, but I'm just fascinated. I'm intrigued by people. I love the study of behavior, and just some of the coolest. I'm attracted some of the coolest people in the world that I just know. I mean, it's amazing. I know some very famous people. I know some, but most of them aren't the most exciting people in my life. I just have people that are just these amazing people that, wow, I'm so grateful they're in my life.
I was chatting with my guest earlier today after the show. We had a really nice after show conversation, and I don't remember how it came about. Somehow she was asking about interviewing whether I talked with people who were in The Secret, and there was one of them, Bob Doyle, who I had on the show at one point. And I confided to her that he was the worst interview of almost anybody I'd ever had, because there was no connection that was going on. He was there just to sell his stuff. Yeah. So there was no human. I tried every which way I knew to connect to the guy.
Wow.
He wasn't having anything. He wasn't having anything to do with it at all. So it was absolutely the worst. So just because somebody is famous that's not necessarily a good person to get to know.
Oh no.
The question isn't whether they're famous. The question is it somebody you connect to?
Well, the connection is the piece, and that's the thing, that being able to be connected, and you don't want what happens is when you seek connection and you really find it, it's obvious when people are just on a show to sell a book or sell these, there's no attempt to really connect. And that's, I don't know how his book was doing or whatever he was selling, but it doesn't really help when you're doing it that way. If he's all about the law of attraction, excited to talk to you about it, and by the way, I got this book coming out, you probably got a lot of people wanting to see that book, read that book.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're just like, hey, can we talk more about my book? And it was
a course that he's trying to sell, and I'm sure he had people who were buying it because he's Bob Doyle, and anybody who knows The Secret, that's one of the people who was involved in The Secret. So I'm sure that he works off of that. But I agree with you; his sales probably weren't all that great, just because of the way he was doing it.
One thing I didn't acknowledge earlier in the show, and Bob Proctor was one of the great law of attraction people of all time.
Absolutely.
He is underrated and often left out of the discussion. I met him twice. There is no one no one I ever met that was more confident in the law of attraction. He lived it, he breathed it. It was everything. He made a fortune. He loved teaching people about it, all aspects of it, and he's greatly missed. He's one of the really good guys. And I just tend to forget him, but sometimes as part of the law of attraction crew. But he was maybe the most powerful law of attraction guy I've ever talked to.
I can totally understand that. And by the way, he also was one of the most enviable
Yeah.
because his teacher was Earl Nightingale.
Yeah. The granddaddy of it all. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
They,
talk about if you're going to learn from somebody, why not learn from Earl? I mean, oh my goodness.
yeah, he was, he said Earl was this very intimidating, but very super nice man. But he had this incredible, as he described it, a velvety voice that was very
Mm.
deep. And
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
Earl said, the world just said, "You got to be right with that voice." It's just,
Yeah,
So
if you don't know who Earl Nightingale is, look him up on YouTube and just listen to his voice, and you'll see what we're
yeah,
talking about. Because his
yeah.
voice was velvet. His voice, just all he could say, "I'm walking to the store," and you were convinced that it was
Oh,
a great breakthrough.
I the only one even close, and I still think Earl's is better, but is James Earl Jones.
Yeah, his is good. His
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if you listen to Earl Nightingale, and it was just the most soothing, most confident description. And Bob Proctor spoke very highly of him. So
Well, plus
also,
Earl Nightingale didn't play Darth Vader. That probably kind of colored the James Earl Jones
that
thing.
helped. But if you're going to look up Earl, also look at Bob Proctor on YouTube. He has some
Yeah.
amazing stuff, and
Yeah.
he's somebody that is greatly missed, and it was really a privilege to meet him 2 separate times.
Yeah,
And something odd, I met him at a conference in Orlando, I think in about 2015. I met him again probably 3 years later at another conference.
Mm.
And one of the most fascinating things, I'm just a run of the mill guy. He remembered my name.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, that was maybe the most, because Joel, how are you doing? And I heard your
Right.
book's out. And I read your book. I want to get your book, or what. I don't know if you ever read it or not, but I was like, oh my gosh, Bob Proctor knew my name.
There are people that I've met too in my life who were quasi. I mean, I would say Bob Proctor is sort of quasi famous because he's associated with The Secret.
Yeah.
Years ago, I had a political orientation. I was a libertarian. There was a libertarian candidate named Harry Brown who ran for president a couple times, and I met him, got to know him, and I didn't really know him well, but it was the same kind of thing. He knew who I was, so the next time I would see him, he would greet me in person by name. It's like, how do you know who I am? You haven't seen me in 4 years.
Yeah,
But he
yeah.
did. And that kind of person, it doesn't even matter what circle they're in. That kind of person, they're making genuine connections with people. That's why they're remembering.
That's what made it seem so personal to me with Bob. He talked to me as if we were friends, and we I was sharing my stories. I get goosebumps. I mean, we were going back and forth, and I'm talking, and in my world, like I said, the average person has no idea who this man is, but
Right.
in my world, he's like one of the greatest. And so
Right.
I'm in the presence of one of the greatest people in my orbit, and we're talking like we're just friends. And he was the most confident man in the use of law of attraction. I try to, and that's one of the things I try to emulate. He didn't just sort of think it worked. He just knew it worked. He just, it just was this. There's no other option for it to work. He just laughed at people that didn't think it worked. Just.
I think that's why he plays such a significant role in the movie, because his force of belief just came through the screen. I mean, you just listened to the guy and you knew he was either the greatest kind man on earth or he really meant it.
He really meant. So that, for our audience that really want an extra dose, Earl Nightingale, Bob Proctor,
Yes.
Google both of those guys, watch their videos. Incredible man. So I'm really glad you mentioned him earlier. I tend to leave him out of the Mount Rushmore when he probably.
But he deserves it. He
really is on the Mount Rushmore to me, and I'm glad you mentioned him.
Yeah, there are a handful that belong there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I know this is egg day. You always have to
eggs.
get your eggs, so we got to draw this to a close. But thank you, my friend, and we'll be talking, I guess, after the holidays. So have a good holiday.
All right, thanks a lot. See you later.
All right, take care, and thank you to all of our listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.